I'll just get myself set up. I tend to wander around a little bit more than Richard did, so I'm going to go handheld, so hopefully everything will be okay. Let's see, there we are. So this presentation, as we said, is the 7 questions you need to ask before you start digital marketing. If you have already started, it is for you as well. So it's about looking back and putting that framework in place, that strategic framework that will help you understand what you need to do and why you need to do it to get to the end results. The Tomorrow Lab, quick mention of who we are. We're part of the Pierce Partnership. We've got brand and design, print, promotional products, that sort of thing, but we'll skip on from that because nobody cares. There we go. So the important part about this is 2 things. Firstly, I'm wearing a coat because it was cold that day. And secondly, as you go down, the last bit there, the MSc in marketing, which I studied and finished a couple of years ago, this whole process was actually drawn out from that MSc. So it started off with some academic research by one of the professors at Jordanstown, which then turned into a process which we'll see in a moment. So it is actually called the digital marketing process, but it really can work for any of your marketing. It's about putting the framework in place, getting those procedures right so you understand who you're talking to. And yes, this is all about digital, but it can work for what press ads are we going to put out, should we be on radio, should we be on TV? And what you'll see as this goes along is that you can drive this through everything that you do. So this is just to get a feel for the room. What sort of size businesses are people with? Can you just put your hands up who's in a company that's got maybe less than 5 people in it? And sort of 5 to 20-ish? That's probably about half. And then say 20 plus the sort of bigger size companies. A couple of hands going up there, okay. My maths is wrong, I think I got 3 halves then, so there's probably about 150% of people there, but right, okay. A lot of the examples here are from slightly bigger companies. There are some smaller company examples in there, but I will mention as we go through how this can relate to some of the smaller type companies as well. Just a quick thing about business strategy. A lot of the time when people come away from this presentation and think, oh, it's terrible, I don't have my strategy written down, so I must be doing everything wrong. A lot of the time when you read the books on strategic management and how you build strategy into your business, it talks about deliberate strategy, which was kind of evolved from military and is used by companies like General Motors. There isn't many businesses in Northern Ireland that look anything like General Motors. So a lot of companies here use what you might call emergent strategy, where they watch how things develop and change over time. And a lot of small businesses use something that's classified as intuitive strategy, where you tend to know what's happening and the owner-operator knows what the strategy is. They just maybe haven't written it down, they haven't put it into words as yet. They all work, it just depends what works for your business. But as I kind of gave away earlier, hope is not a strategy. If you don't have something that's going to plan what your plan, doesn't say what your strategy is for the next few years, the next 12 months, the next 24 months, you're going to start going wrong at some point. So just don't hope you're going to get it right. It doesn't mean it has to be written down, but you have to know what you're supposed to be doing. So this lovely picture is how this process started out. It was up at the university. It was academically rigorous, but practically useless. Nobody would understand what that slide meant. I sat in 3 days worth of classes and I still don't really know what that means. We took that away and then we started to build it into a different strategic plan here at the Tomorrow Lab, which we call A-STAR. It's a lovely, cheesy Americanism. It's the A-STAR model. But that's so we can remember what it all means. We've got audit, strategy, tactics, activity, results. And this is how we plan all our work with every single client, from the smallest clients all the way up to the Expedias. We use this process to run, and it works all the way through. So the 7 questions we talk about today come from the audit phase of that. And they're grouped into 7 sections, which again are in 7 C's, partly so I can remember them when I'm out talking to people. Company, customer, context, competence, competition, content, and capital. The slides will be available later, so if you can't remember all of them, that's fine. The only one that probably shouldn't be a C is competence. It probably should be resource, but 6 C's and 1 R didn't sound quite as catchy when it came to a model title, so we moved it on to this. So the first one, when we talk about his company, the first question is, what do you do? It sounds really, really obvious at first. What do you do? Oh, well, we're hairdressers, or we sell rugs, or we're a digital marketing agency. And that's all great. So you think, right, okay, well, what we do, that's pretty simple, pretty straightforward. But is that going to work? Who works for a company that's got a mission statement? Anybody? Anyone prepared to put their hands up? Go on then. Can anyone tell me what their company's mission statement is? I'm not going to ask you to repeat it, but put your hand up if you know what your company's mission statement is. Not just that you have one, but you actually know what it is. Right, we've got one. And that's because most mission statements look, you probably can't read this, but this is what most mission statements look like. It says, guided by a insert heartfelt adjective, focus on cliche, another cliche, and another cliche. We will strive to, long-winded phrase, delivering big, astronomically worded to our vague group. And you've all heard them. You know, we strive to be the world's greatest something or other that will do this and do that to this different group of people across these different territories over this different time scale. And nobody cares. Nobody can remember. You know, we've had, well, I don't know, 15 hands went up and only one person sheepishly thinks he might be able to remember it. I know, and this isn't saying we're great at this, we had one of these awful things for years and years and years. We've now got ours in a really tight, really short way that if I asked one of the team, they'd be able to tell me it. If you asked anyone in our organisation, they could tell you what our mission statement is. It's connecting businesses to their consumers online. That's it. That's what we do as a business. We're not a digital marketing company. We don't do Facebook. We don't do Google. They are services we offer, but we connect businesses to their consumers online. So a couple of years ago, nobody talked about content marketing, but we do that now. Nobody talked about influencer marketing, but we do that now. And because we have this guiding principle about, as long as it's about connecting businesses to consumers online, then it's something we may do as a service. So you need to understand what you do. So if you can't tell somebody what your company does, if you can't maybe give me an elevator pitch, you know, that sort of 30-second, this is what our company does if you were pitching for business. If you can't tell me what the objectives are, what your company history is, or importantly, what your tone of voice is, how are you going to tell your customers when you have a digital platform? If you can't stand in front of someone and tell them in 30 seconds what your company means, how the hell can you do it in 140 characters on Twitter? How can you put it into a Google ad and get what your company means to them or what you are trying to do for them? How can you do that if you can't stand in front of somebody and tell them? So you really have to understand what your company means and what it is that you're trying to do so you can get there. One of the easy ways, and it's easy to get cynical about people who stand up and say, you need to have a mission statement and you've got to have this, but it's about being able to visualize what you're trying to do for the company. An easy way when you're trying to find out what your tone of voice is what celebrity would you appoint as an ambassador for your company? That's not to say that you're going to get this person, but what sort of tone of voice would you want? You know, Rory Best or Blake Lively, I had to check who she was, I wasn't quite sure, she's in a film or something. Dave Grohl, Beyonce, Beckham, lovely Rory McSorley down here, little, you know, home country boy. Who would you pick as your business's celebrity spokesman if you could pick one person? Because when you understand that, that helps when you're trying to write ads, when you're trying to come up with creative, when you're trying to decide what you put on these stands. What sort of voice do you want projecting for your company? So once you can visualize it, if you get a new member of staff coming in and you say, you know, this is the sort, we want people to go away thinking like David Beckham would voice our radio ads. You get an impression in your mind immediately what type of radio ad that might be, compared to if Dave Grohl comes up and he starts effing and blinding all over the radio ad. So it helps to visualize what happens there. The second question is, who are your customers? Back to the floor again. It's all right, don't worry, I'm not going to jump down and start roving around. What do you think the most common answer I get when I ask clients? We do this as a workshop, by the way, and we use this booklet which we work through. I'll talk about this later. When I ask people in a workshop, who are your customers? Do you know what the most common answer is? Anybody want to guess? Hey, exactly! There goes John Luke. People always tell me everyone's their customer, and it makes me violent. I drag people over to the window, I throw them out. I want to kill people who tell me this. It really, really irritates me. If we weren't live streaming, I'd be swearing by now. This, if you can see the picture, no, not John Luke, there. This is the Kumbh Mela. This is in India. It's in Allahabad. It happens every 12 years-ish, roughly. It depends on the moon cycles, so I'm not quite sure, but it is roughly every 12 years. 120 million people turn up at the Kumbh Mela over 2 weeks. On the busiest day, the holiest day, when people dip in the Ganges to cleanse themselves of their sins, 30 million people turn up on one day. It's the biggest peacetime gathering of people anywhere on the planet. Anywhere. And it'll be bigger next time it happens. If everybody buys your product, get a stall at the Kumbh Mela, go once, Sell it. Sell everything you've got to the 30 million people. And then go home and retire. You've done. You've won. That's it. Business is finished. Everyone doesn't buy your product. The fact is, hardly anybody buys your product. Even the best-selling product in the world is bought by hardly anybody on the planet when you look at the percentages. Nobody buys your product. So really, if anyone ever tells you everyone buys our product or service, they're just not thinking hard enough about it. So we do this with clients where we start and force them to create personas. So when we take them away, and once the bleeding stopped after I've hit their heads against the wall a little bit, when they've said everyone buys our product, we force them to create personas. So yes, you might have lots of different types of customers. We've been through this with one customer. They had 22 different personas. We did this with another group. They had 3. That was a one-man band who runs a small tour company. He had 3 different personas. One company had 22. It doesn't matter how many you have, but first of all, you really need to start digging into it. So we've got Dolled Up Destiny. She's 17 to 20. She's a school leaver. She's stylish. She's into Snapchat. She's on Instagram every day. And you start to understand who this person is, where they are, what sorts of things they buy, what media they read, what habits they have, and that sort of thing. So that, depending on what your business is, you have these. If you are, we talked about hairdressers earlier on, if you are a hairdresser, you'll know that you've got the little old ladies who come in every Thursday because it's half price day. You'll know that on a Saturday, you've got all the lads who come in with their dads for the cool haircuts so they can dab when they go out that night. You start to understand, right, well, these people come in at different times for different reasons. And they have different buying behaviours and they have different buying patterns. So yes, you may have everyone coming in, or you may think you have everyone, but start to drill down and you start to see these things and visualise it. This looks a little bit fancy because we had a graphic designer do it, but you don't have to do that. Go to Google Images, find an image of someone who looks like your average customer, stick it on a Word document and write a few bullet points next to it that says our average customer is Night Out Nikki, she's 18 to 35, goes out 3 times a month when she's got the money, loves the crack, wants to go and get this product because it's cool, it's trending, she's down with the mates, and you start to understand what each person does. This works in B2B as well. Your chief executive has a different problem to your finance director, who has a different problem to your marketing manager, who has a different problem to the receptionist. If you've got to get past all of those customers to get someone to buy your product, you need to understand what all of their problems are. Just one thing on naming as well, visualizing it and naming people really, really helps. It's really powerful. When we started doing this, we've got 5 now, but we used to have 3 personas. We had Mary, Orla, and David. And could I remember what David did, or which David? Was David the marketing guy, or was he the director, or I couldn't quite remember. So we changed names. We started using alliteration. It's a really simple yet powerful tool. So you've got Night Out Nikki. Immediately thinks, right, this isn't the 8 to 13-year-old, because we're talking about nights out. This is the older persona. We've got Director David. We've got Marketing Mary. It just immediately brings to mind what that person is and what they do. So you've really got to drive down and understand who your customer groups are. The key thing with this as well, being developing from an academic background, is you can use qual and quant research. Sit down and work it out between you. Who do you think your customers are? Who do you see? Who do you talk to? If you're an online-only business, you get the feel for it, but start to put the colour around it first, and then qualify it using the data that you have. If you've got Google Analytics, if you've got Facebook, start to have a look and say, right, most of our customers are 40-plus men who come in 3 times a week and buy this. On your Facebook page, it's telling that all your customers are 18-year-old girls. Does that mean your content's wrong, or does that mean you've got your audience wrong? But you can start to use both qual and quant to justify what you're doing and start to paint the full picture of your customer groups. Context is another interesting thing that's often missed by many people when you start to look at your marketing strategy. And it's how is it done in your industry? Every industry has some norms. Every industry has certain things that they do and terms that they use and that they don't use. Solicitors talk to people in an entirely different way to banks, who talk to you differently to your dentist. So you have that language that people use, but what that can lead to is everybody looks entirely and exactly the same. So I did a Google search here for car advertisements. Now, I can see up here we've got Mercedes, we've got Bentley, we've got Lexus, we've got maybe a Ford one, an Audi one, and if you can see it, if you're a bit closer to the front, the thing that will stand out is that they all look exactly the same. It's a big background somewhere. We've got 1, 2 with snow on, we've got 1 in a rugged outdoor place, we've got 1 in the 2 with animals in the jungle. It all looks the same. If you go and have a look at the beauty industry, look, that's perfume ads. Just a Google image search for perfume ads. They all look the same. Expensive star, brooding picture, little product in the corner. Which one's which? Who knows, who cares? When you look at what you've got and what you're selling, you really have to be able to say, what's different about my company? Why should someone buy my product? Yes, you've got the best place in Google, you've got your AdWords above somebody else. Why are they going to click on your ad, not the one that's in second place? You have to tell them a reason why. And a lot of the time, people say, my product's different. Is it really? Is your product really all that different from somebody else's? Do you have an extra knob or a whistle or one? But as long as the product meets the minimum threshold that most customers are looking for, it's not really going to be all that different. You look at Android users laugh every time the iPhone bring a new feature out because, we had that for we've had that for 3 years. Ours has been waterproof for years. We've been able to do that for years. And then the iPhone sells because nobody cares, because no one really cares if the product's all that different. So you have to make sure, so your product's not going to be hugely different. Price, you're probably about the same price as your competitors. You might be a bit cheaper here and a bit more expensive there, but trying to stand out on price really doesn't work for many businesses. The odd one it does, but not many. Place, you're selling online, great, so is everybody else. The one place you can stand out quite easily is promotion. And when you start to understand this, you can drive this through your ad text, your content that's going on Facebook, what you're going to put on Twitter. When you understand how you can be a little bit different to everybody else, the thing I like to say to people is when nothing goes right, go left. Try and be a little bit different. But this is why you have to go back and understand what your company is and what it stands for right at the beginning. You can't decide all of a sudden you're going to be Paddy Power and start doing funny, risky, controversial things if what you are is an accountant practice in Newry, because it's not going to work for you. It has to be able to be authentic, so when people come into you or when they come and buy from you, they get that experience. So if they're ordering online, the packaging reflects the ad that they've seen. So if you are going to be funny, you need to be funny end to end. If you are going to be serious end to end. So you need to find a way you can stand out on promotion to be a little bit different, because if you want to go into AdWords, you'll probably find your competitors are doing AdWords. You want to be on Facebook, they're probably there as well. So how do you stand out? How do you be a little bit different? And you look at, back to a couple of big examples, but Bjorn Borg, the tennis player, went into making underwear, and this is the sort of thing they do in their ads. It's not often I do presentations with men in their underwear on screen, but I thought, well, why not give it a chance? So they did this thing called Swedish Export, where they would send out once you bought their undies, you got a little thing in the pack, which said, send us a picture of you wearing your undies, and if you win the best one this month, we'll send you your height in Bjorn Borg undies. Brilliant. The 20 quid a pair, about my size, that's about 250 quid worth of undies. Brilliant. Why not? I'll do that. And people did. By the thousand. People did it skiing, people were doing flagpoles, people were holding each other's bums, doing everything. And they sent in all this. And look what Calvin Klein were doing. The same as they always did. Look, I'm a model. I'm going to lean here and be achingly cool. And they were just different. Now, if you think you're a little bit quirky and a man of the people, or you're a bit fun, which are you going to be? Well, you'd be on Borg's where you go, Calvin Klein, yeah, I'm just cool. So it just depends. They stood out a little bit that way. The other example that really comes through quite a lot is the Dollar Shave Club. Has anyone seen the Dollar Shave Club video? There's lots of nods. I'm kind of behind time a little bit, so I'm not going to show a bit. In fact, can we show a little bit? This has got, when I did this presentation about 6 weeks ago, I had 22.8 million views on YouTube. It's probably at 23 million now. A huge number of views. I think, how long have I been up so far?
Hi, I'm Mike, founder of DollarShaveClub.com. What is DollarShaveClub.com? Well, for $1 a month, we send high-quality razors right to your door. Yeah, $1. Are the blades any good? No. Our blades are f***ing great. Each razor has stainless steel blades, an aloe vera lubricating strip, and a pivot head. It's so gentle a toddler could use it. And do you like spending $20 a month on brand name razors? 19 go to Roger Federer. I'm good at tennis. And do you think your razor needs a vibrating handle, a flashlight, a back scratcher, and 10 blades? Your handsome-ass grandfather had 1 blade and polio. Looking good, pop up! Stop paying for shave tech you don't need. And stop forgetting to buy your blades every month. Alejandro and I are going to ship them right to you. We're not just selling razors, we're also making new jobs. Alejandro, what were you doing last month?
Not working.
What are you doing now?
Working.
I'm no Vanderbilt, but this train makes hay. So stop forgetting to buy your blades every month and start deciding where you're going to stack all those dollar bills I'm saving you. We are DollarShaveClub.com, and the party is on.
So, Dollar Shave Club sold recently for $1 billion, or there or thereabouts. Now, to be fair, they did have something else slightly different. Their place was different. The whole shave club, they send it monthly. So they had two things which helped them create a sustainable competitive advantage. But when you think about it, that guy who was in the video sold the company, as I say, for $1 billion. His main competition was Gillette. Gillette spend, what is it, I think $14 billion a year on advertising. The world's biggest advertising spender. This year, so 2016, they released the Gillette Club. 5 years it took a company with that resource to close the gap on a guy who made a funny video for about $5,000. 5 years against the world's biggest advertising spenders. $2 billion a year they spend on research and development, and it took them 5 years to catch up with a guy in a funny video with a machete. By being different in promotion and driving it through what you do, you can make a real difference to your business. Not everyone's going to be the Dollar Shave Club, and not everything has to be big budget. Joe Wicks, the body coach, everybody heard of him now? Yeah, he didn't do it by spending a load of money. He did it by being different. Anyone follow recipes online on YouTube? I do. You sit there and there's 20 minutes worth of, and this is how you do it, and this is how you fold it. Joe Wicks started in 15-second recipe videos on YouTube. Midget trees! And throwing rice across the room. And now he's got a contract with the Daily Mail, he's got his own TV show, which is terrible, but who cares? He's making a load of money on the back of that. We've also got Niall down here, one of our, where is he? Niall, give everybody a wave. Niall runs a food blog called Piccalilli with his lovely wife who does most of the work for him, I think. And you can see up there, Niall reached 80,000 people making a video with his iPhone, spending a $5 to support it. So not everything has to be huge budget. You can't really see on this. 82,000 people reached, 40,000 video views, 3,000 reactions. He went out one afternoon on a sunny day in Newcastle, shot some scenes of the mountains of Mourne sweeping down to the sea and people riding bikes and eating Morelli's ice cream, put it up online, spent a $5 supporting it, and his blog went through the roof. So you don't have to think, big budget, how am I going to take on Gillette? You've just got to think, what can I give my audience? So go back to your customers, and go back to your night out Nickies and your dolled up destinies. What can I give them that they want that's going to be true to my company, and then get it to them? And that's all Niall did. Competence, as I said, it should be resource. What skills do you have in-house? This is where you have to be really, really honest and really, really brutal. Now, you might have someone in your team who says, I can take photographs. You might have someone in your team who says, I love copywriting, I used to write stories at school. I'll build that website for you, don't worry. Let me tell you now, right? It's much easier to sit down with someone in your team and go, listen, I don't think your photography skills are up to it, we're going to bring in a professional, than it is to take some shit photographs, put them online, and then have every one of your customers laugh at your business from their own screen, sitting there going, look at what they've done, isn't it horrible? Because that customer's not coming back. So you have to be brutal and you have to be honest. When they say, oh no, we've got graphic design skills. I mean, we sit in meetings with people who show us, none of these are all caricatures, but show us stuff and say, oh, we've got a graphic designer. I think, no, you haven't. Copywriting, no, you don't. Social media strategy, let's post a fluffy cat online. Why? Well, everyone loves cats, right? Great, we've got a cat online. Brilliant, you're an accountancy practice. Who cares about the cat? We hear this all the time, that we've got these things in-house. If you're going to do it and you want to do it right, if you don't have the skills and honestly don't have the skills, outsource it. That's not saying you have to give it to the Tomorrow Lab. That's just saying look for an expert in the field that you need and pay the money for it, because it will pay back for you. People will look and will laugh at what you do if you don't do it right. So competition. You'll notice the question's written as who has your money, not who are your competition. But would anybody like to guess when we say to people, who are your competitors? What the most popular answer is when we ask people that question? Any guesses? Everyone. Yay, everyone! There's a theme here, isn't there? That's the other time then I drag them back to the wall, smash their head a few more times and go, listen, no, everyone has competitors. You might have something that's a little bit different, and you might have a product that's slightly different, or you've bundled a few things together to give you a competitive advantage, which is all great. But you have to really understand that your customers didn't have more money today than they did yesterday. So if you're launching something new to market, you have to take money from someone else. That's why the question is, who has your money? Where are you going to take money from so people can spend it with you? It could be a direct competitor, but it might be somewhere else. So the place to look for this is some old school marketing theory. So if you're not quite sure who your competitors are, or you don't think you have any competitors, have a look at SWOT analysis. If you have a look in the threats column when you're doing that, you'll start to see that actually there's some threats to your business, and that might be where the money's being spent. I used to work at a professional sports club, a cricket club in the northeast of England. There was no other professional cricket club within 100 miles of us. So when we got there, people said, oh, it's easy, this job, there's no competition. The cinema was our competition. The football was our competition. A restaurant was our competition. Now, nobody had ever thought of it in those terms, but if people are going to go and spend their family night out money, they're going to go to the cinema because it doesn't rain in the cinema, and you don't have to worry about it raining and the cricket not happening. So we had to look at competition in a different way. There's some other old school marketing theory. Porter's 5 forces is a little bit less used than SWOT analysis, but if you Google it, there's instructions on how to use it all over Google. But if you look in, there's one area called threat of substitutions. That could be a good place to look for where people are spending the money instead of with you. The other thing as well is you can have Google competition. This is just a very simple example, but Snickers and Snickers. One's a workwear trouser, one's a bar of chocolate with nuts in that old people like me call Marathon. If you go into a shop that sells workwear gear and ask for Snickers, they'll give you a pair of trousers. If you go into a corner shop and ask for Snickers, they'll give you a chocolate bar. You type the word Snickers into Google, doesn't really know what you want. We work with a product at the minute called Mastermind. There's a TV show called Mastermind. That's a competitor because we need to get them up the rankings for the term Mastermind. And the TV show's been around for years and it's quite dominant. So you have to look at your competitive set in a slightly different way other than who sells the same thing as us, because you could have competitors in a wider way. And once you understand who they are, you can then start to build a plan to say, how am I going to stand out against these people online? How is my content going to be different? How am I going to get above Snickers or Mastermind or whatever online? Content. So this is the content marketing piece and the bit that a lot of people like to hear about. So it's what stories can you tell about your business? Have a look, some places to look. You've probably already got social channels, but a lot of people, the number one thing we hear when we talk to people about this or when we do events, say, we've been doing social media, we're doing this. So do you ever look at the analytics? The what? Hardly anybody looks at the analytics for social. Mainly because it's easy, it's quick, it's cheap to do. You've got to look at those analytics. You've got to look at Google Analytics. You've got to look at what's happening, what's working for you and what's not working for you. Have a look at your competitors as well, because they could be doing something online that could be working. The only thing about looking at competitors, and we hear this all the time, can we do this because they're doing that on Facebook? Or can we change our ad text because our competitor's using that? There's a lovely academic phrase called mimetic isomorphism. I think this might be the last question to the floor. Does anyone know what mimetic isomorphism means? It doesn't mean everyone, by the way. Anyone? Copying, basically. Again, going back to the cricket club, we used to get this all the time. Man United have just implemented this new season ticket buying scheme. We should look at doing that. We're Durham County Cricket Club. We had 3,000 members. Man United have got 60, 70,000 seats, and they sell out all their season tickets. Did anyone see a problem if we tried to implement a Man United style ticket buying scheme at Durham Cricket Club? It would have been a disaster. You don't know what works for your competitors. You can't see their analytics. You don't know if that funny post of the fluffy cat led to any sales or whether it led to the managing director coming in and sacking the marketing person. So just because it had 500 likes compared to the 15 you get on your post doesn't mean you should take the fluffy cat and start posting it. The one we like to use, because mimetic isomorphism is quite difficult for most people to remember, this one tends to stick with people a little bit better. Stop copying your competitors. They don't know what they're doing either. Right? Have a look at what they're doing, watch it, learn from it, and try and develop it into something different. So where can you look for those great bits of content? In slightly bigger organisations, you tend to find that purchasing and marketing and sales and operations and customer service might be in different silos. And when everything's siloed out, you miss some great information that comes through. You have to get all that information. If people are ringing up your customer service team and saying this isn't working, if that information is not coming back, you're missing out on something. If you've got sales teams and sales reps that are out on the road and they're not telling you what the most popular questions they're being asked every week are, if people are asking your sales team, the chances are they're trying to type that into Google to try and find it for you. So if you're not writing content based on those questions, you're missing a huge trick. Does anyone do hiking? Climb mountains, that sort of thing? No, nobody's ever walked up sleeved honoured. There must be someone who's walked up sleeved honoured, please. At least 1, 2, 3, yes, there we go. Any advance on 3? Right. If you've ever bought climbing boots and hiking boots for going outside and doing some outdoor activity stuff, what you find sometimes is when you're walking uphill, you walk at a funny angle, your foot comes up like that, so you kind of always, your shin is always pushing on the tongue of your boot. And what a lot of walkers find is that they get rubbing when they fasten the laces. So you get, hiking boots typically have the 3, everything's laced up, and then you have the 3 eyelets at the top, and you go round and round and round, fasten it up. And you end up with this really awkward rubbing, and it's a pain in the backside. If you go online and try and find out how you get rid of that, you will rarely find anyone from Berghaus or any of the big companies that are telling you how to do this. You might find some blogs that will tell you how to do it. But the companies never really talk about this. You go into a shop that sells hiking boots and ask them that question and say, I get this really annoying rubbing. And immediately, any sales advisor in any of those shops will tell you how to get rid of it. Instead of going the bottom, the middle, the top, and then fasten it up, go bottom, top, middle, and then fasten it. You just take away the point of pressure on your shin, and it stops hurting. Now, that information is known by every sales assistant I've ever spoken to in any hiking shop. If you try and find that information online, none of the big hiking shops or none of the big shoe companies are talking about it. But everyone I know who goes hiking has the same problem and goes in and says, how do I get rid of that? Is it the shoes? So if you're not passing that information between people in your company, it really is a miss because people are asking questions and they will want that answer. So if you can give them that answer, they're going to come to you. You're starting to build that relationship with them. And just, I think Richard mentioned this in his presentation about just being on different screens at different times. We hear this thing about the second screen, and again, if you hear anyone talking about the second screen, just hit them in the head. There is no such thing as a second screen. Your customers are just everywhere. They'll be watching the phone while the TV's on, they'll be on the tablet, they'll have the computer on. The second screen is a redundant concept. It's all the screens all the time, pretty much for most people. So don't have this distinction between, oh, this is content here and this is content there. People need to know that. Remember we talked about your company and what your company means? If you're driving that through every touch point, from in-store or online or on your advertising channels or on different screens, it has to hang together. And that's why you look at what the company means, because you have to hang the whole thing together by that. If you're looking at how you can come up with content ideas, there's a blog about this on our website. I'll not go into it in too much detail here, but there's a really quick way of making 100 ideas in 30 minutes called the 6-3-5 technique. 6 people, you set an alarm on your phone to beep every 3 minutes, and within that 3 minutes, you just have to come up with, 5 minutes, you have to come up with 3 ideas. And that's it. And then you pass the piece of paper to the person on your left, the alarm goes again, and you have to come up with 3 more ideas. And you just keep passing it around until you get the bit of paper back at the beginning. And all you're looking for at that time is titles. And then half of them you'll never use because they'll be rubbish. But what they do is they start to spark off each other, and ideas start to spark off each other. There's a story I tell every time, so if you've ever seen me speak before, I do apologise because you will have heard this story about a bear. In Canada, they used to have a problem with snow falling, hitting the power lines, and the power lines would come down, leaving thousands of people without power. They had a brainstorming session at some government thing, and someone came up with a great idea. Why don't we get the bears to shake the power poles, because that'll get the snow stopping falling on it. And everybody did what? Look at that guy. Who's he? It turned out that actually as I went through the problem, you can't really stop it from snowing in Canada, so how can you deal with this? The bear shaking the pole wasn't a bad idea. Once the power lines start to go up and down, the snow will fall off. The eventual solution was get a helicopter, fly it low over the power lines, and whenever the snow starts, the downdraft will shake the lines, and off will come the snow, and the power lines don't go down. So that all came from the bear idea. So the 6-3-5 has a similar concept. Just put the idea down. When that sheet goes round to the left, the next person might look at your idea and go, oh, actually, there's a better way of doing that. So once you've got that, you get all these ideas. You've got over 100 ideas. Collate them, look at the strongest ones, find the best ones and start to go. If you use all 100, there's something wrong. You need to be throwing half of them out straight away and going, this is ridiculous. If you want, we'll tweet the link to that. Jess, can you tweet that link at some point from the Tomorrow Lab? At the Tomorrow Lab, we'll tweet the link to that blog so you can find out how to do that properly. And then right at the end, what's this worth to your business? What we have when a lot of companies come to us, and what a lot of companies do is they set a budget and say, right, we've got this much money for marketing. And I understand why companies do that, because you need to set your budgets for the year and you need to plan, you need to understand what you're going to spend. But first of all, ask, what is it worth to your business? If you get this right, what will the upside be? How many more customers will you bring in? What will that bring into your bottom line? And when you start to look at that first, you start to, before you say how much money we're going to spend, start to look at what's it going to be worth to your business. Similar slide to what Richard had earlier. The ADA model. This is maybe an older version of it. I like the older versions because most people have heard of them rather than the new ones. But basically, awareness, interest, desire, action. When you start to think about what's this going to be worth to your business, you start to understand where you're going to spend your money. Now, this side, most marketing people would say that, spend your time on awareness more than you do on action. Most salespeople would say, no, spend less on awareness and more on action. It changes by every business. It really does. And what you need to do, but you need to make sure that you're spending at every stage of that. If all you're doing is spending at the sales level, once you've gone through all your qualified prospects, there's nobody else coming in the top. If all you're doing is awareness, there's no one buying your products and you're going to run out of business at some point soon. So it really is about trying to get through all of those stages. It's all about the Benjamins. I'm not sure I'm street enough or American enough to use that phrase, but it's all about making money. So what you need to do when you're doing this is to really look and say, right, what's going to return? Which area is this is going to return the money so we can reinvest it? Richard made a great point earlier on that it's about being able to measure and see where those returns come. But if you ask yourself now, at that point, how much are we going to spend each month? So you start to work it back and say, right, we've got all these stories that we need to tell to Dolled Up Destinies, to Night Out Nickies. We know we need to go and outsource copywriting because we don't have that, but we've got photography in-house, but we're going to need to outsource video as well. We've got these 6 different customer segments, and this is what our company means to them. How are we going to get that message across? It's easy to start to see, is your budget going to go that far? And if it's not going to go that far, if it's not going to go that far, go back to your personas that you did in the customer section and put them in order. Which is our most important customer group? And once you've had that task where you say to yourself, and you sit with the managing director and the sales team, and you say, right, which one of these customer groupings are we going to focus on first? And you say, right, okay, it's going to be Dolled Up Destinies or Marketing Marys or whatever you've called them. And once you've done that, your budget, you can say, okay, actually, yeah, that budget will reach those people. Okay, can we do the second segment as well? Great. So you're starting to look at it from the other way around. Rather than what money have we got? Okay, we've got this much money, let's spend it on Facebook. Go through that process and start to ask, what does our company mean to people? Who are we talking to, our customers? What's everyone else doing in our industry? How are we going to tell those stories that we've got? Who's going to tell those stories? And if we get this right, it's going to be worth what to our business? Because if you work out it's going to be worth this to you to get it right, how much are you willing to spend to make that happen? And if you ask the questions that way around, and that's not a sales trick to be able to get the finance director to spend more money, involve the finance director in that process, involve the managing director in that process, involve the sales team, involve the people who deal with returns. You need to involve all of those people. Because if you do that, what happens is you end up with a marketing strategy that everyone's bought into. And then you can use that to start driving through what you do online, and you can use that to start driving through all your other activity. One last thing before I get off stage and let somebody else up, because I think I might have run over time ever so slightly. We have a little workbook here that 2 things. Has all those questions in there, and is a little bit of a structure that you can run through. We don't have enough to give everybody one, but if you come and see some of the team, who are the ones down here ignoring what I'm saying and sending messages, and we'll be at the back later on, we can email you a copy of this workbooklet if you want to work through it. And just one last plug, we have an event on the 1st of December up in Belfast at the OER, which is about planning your digital marketing for 2017, where there'll be 3 or 4 speakers running through some specifics and some workable plans that you'll be able to use. So again, if you want any more information about that, we're at the back. So I think that's me. Thank you very much for your time.